I said it must
Wanted to be in the building. This is actually one of the reasons I wanted to be in the building. We haven't really had the last couple senior days have been kind of lackluster, and I know he's not a total 4-year guy, but he's a 3-year guy. I wanted to see Dez Wells off. He's just done. I mean, he's been marred.
Yeah.
It sucks that he's been on such shitty teams until now. 2 of his 3 years have been on, horseshit, non-tournament teams because he is so goddamn good. And he's brought us so many fantastic memories. I wanted to see him go. I want to see him play one last time in the Comcastle, and that was kind of my driving force. So I did it for Dez.
Yeah,
Nice.
I'm totally with you. He definitely is one of those guys that you want to get one last look at in person. I've enjoyed watching him play. I think just his athleticism, it's pretty obvious to tell that he can play professionally at the next level. There's parts of his game that need serious, work. But that's all normal. He's developed really well. There's parts of his game that are still very raw. Sometimes he tries to take on the whole world and take over a game, and he does, not recognize numbers on the court. He'll be like 1 on 3, and he'll try and weave in for a layup and miss. But I think those things are going to. I think Dez has got a shot to make it, past college and not necessarily have to play overseas. I'm seeing on most of the mocks, right? He's like a second-round guy. Is that what you've seen, CT?
I haven't really even checked, but I'd imagine that someone could take a stab at him. But I think I'd run counter to you. He's probably. I mean, he'll probably be a summer league guy, and I would suspect that he'd go overseas.
I mean, I don't know, dude. I think he's got D-League written all over him. I think he's like the absolute ideal D-League guy. I mean, a lot of those guys will stay home and get less money than they would overseas because obviously D-League's just a direct pipeline to the NBA. I mean, especially this time of the year, NBA, like how many guys are getting 10-day contracts and everything. So I think Dez Wells is totally a D-League guy, and I think he could potentially make it on an NBA roster at some point. I mean, even like Cliff Tucker and Eric Hayes, I think Dez is more skilled than they are. I mean, although I loved both of them and Eric Hayes especially, but I think Dez has got a future. I wouldn't write him off to overseas just yet.
I would like to bring up, actually, now that I've mentioned it and I've professed my love, I thought about this earlier today. Going to see Dez Wells' last game is a big deal because for this podcast specifically, because the first podcast episode is entitled Dez Wells Freed. And it was right before his first game in a Maryland uniform, before the Kentucky game in the Barclays Center. So Dez Wells is a little bit tied to the podcast. He probably has no fucking clue. But,
I told him.
a little bit of a sad moment. As Red Shell Radio, we've been following him since his early days as a Terp. So I feel a little bit emotionally tied to him, as I said before.
And Dez Wells
if you
is the sponsor of the Red Shell Radio podcast.
Yeah, this episode has been brought to you by Vivid Seats and Dez Wells. And CT, if you want to have a good cry right now, dude, like it's totally normal. Like I won't judge you.
Not until the season ends, for sure.
Okay, all right.
Because we're not done with him just yet. But
I think you've done good by Dez, though, Schwenk. I think that's a noble thing to do.
Good for you, Schwenk. Way to dole out those extra bucks on non-Vivid Seat sites to see Dez Wells off. Good for you, though.
I think Dez has one of the rarest qualities in college basketball today, and that he is just a gamer when the game is on the line. I think when his 3 years is done at Maryland, I think there'll be at least 7 or 8 games that Maryland just period does not win without him. I mean, totally. He just I mean, there's 2 this year. I mean, Northwestern and Michigan State, he hit that 3 at the buzzer to send it to overtime. I mean, he's just one of those guys that when you need a big play or a big shot, he makes it. And I think that's really rare, man. And damn glad that he transferred to Maryland.
Exactly. I mean, there were like a few nerds on the mess I saw on some of the other sites talking about how sometimes maybe it might not be best to start Dez, and sometimes Dez kills the momentum, and
we even talked about it on the pod.
Yeah, I mean, he takes questionable shots sometimes. Like I just mentioned, like he'll try and go 1-on-3 and stuff like that. But dude, Dez Wells is a leader. He's a warrior, and I mean, like you said, Mel, he's a gamer. He deserves all the praise in the world. And I think that, like I said, there's some raw spots in his game, but he can round that off and be successful at the next level, whether it is D League, overseas, whatever. I mean, I'm really proud of him, and definitely trust him when the game's on the line. I think he deserves all the credit. He's a mature kid. He's a good kid, and he's a hell of a player. So props to him.
Now it's time for me.
Fuck. It's 2014. Get caught.